welcome back to the Flour Barn Homestead. I'm Lily, and today we're going to be talking about the most profitable items to sell at your home bakery. So not only am I going to list out some items that are really profitable at our bakery, the Flour Barn, I'm also going to discuss what makes an item profitable and why, and how to find what's the most profitable and feasible for your own home bakery business. And if you hear any grunting or noises in the corner, my daughter and my son are off on their nap schedules, so every time she wakes up, he goes to bed, and then when he wakes up, she goes back to bed. So there's always going to be a kid in the background. But she is eating a muffin right now, and she's a loud eater, so I apologize for that. Okay, so let's get back into it. For those of you who are new here and don't know anything about the Flour Barn, that is the bakery that I own with my sister and my dad. It's located on our family farm, and it is open on Fridays and Saturdays, 8 to 11. Our big seller is jumbo cinnamon rolls, but we also sell artisan sourdough, laminated danishes, croissants, cream-filled croissants, brownies, cookies, cookie sandwiches, a lot of items that I will be talking about, obviously. And then we also have a full coffee menu that we have with our espresso machine, and we have partnered with a local coffee roaster to kind of make sure that we have a very good coffee setup. So all of our experience is really coming from owning this bakery, and then also before we owned this bakery, my sister had a custom cakes business, and I operated a little micro bakery out of my apartment when I was in college, selling breads and sweets. So we really have been in this game for a little while. So that's really where where all these tips and tricks are coming from. So let's get into it. So what makes a profitable item? A lot of times when you are starting out as a baker, you are able to give all your time, because it's usually just you. You're not paying anyone else. So you don't think of time as money, and that is a big mistake, because let's say you're doing sourdough, the cost of ingredients for sourdough are very low, but the amount of labor that goes into it is high. So although the profit margin looks good, it really isn't great. So you just want to make sure that you're accounting for the amount of time, effort, and even enjoyment in it. Like if you love sourdough bread, it may be more worth it to you to spend more time. If you hate doing the sourdough bread, it may not be worth it to you to put that much time into it. Obviously, ingredients are a big thing you have to consider into the profit margins. Things like sliced almonds, any type of nuts, eggs. When prices are high, you have to consider, changing what you're making. So sometimes when eggs are really cheap, you may be making items that have lots of eggs in them, like brownies. When eggs are really expensive, you may want to switch it up and move to something with less eggs in it, like cookies. I mean, cookies still have eggs, but they don't have nearly as many eggs as brownies do. So the first item I'm going to talk about is sourdough bread. And I think I mentioned before, it's something that has a very good profit margin, especially if you don't account for your time. Sourdough bread takes a lot of time. It also takes, if you're a home baker, a lot of equipment. So you need to have plenty of refrigerator space for overnight proofing. You need to have plenty of cast irons for your oven if you're doing artisan loaves, or you need a commercial bread oven, or even the simple bread oven, I believe, is zoned for residential use. But again, those are all things that you have to invest in that will change those profit margins. What I will say is a good thing about sourdough bread, although it can be a big ordeal to make it, it brings in a lot of customers. A lot of people are looking for people who sell sourdough bread. So even if you are just selling it to bring customers in, just for that reason, it's worth it. Because although, let's say they spend $10, only $10 on that loaf of bread, you want to make sure that you have plenty of other items that you can offer them, because a lot of times if they're already making the effort and buying a loaf of bread from you, they're likely to add something onto their order. Even if it's just one brownie or a bag of 6 muffins. Anything to bring up your average sale price is going to help you. So while sourdough can be an investment in time and sometimes doesn't always actually have the best profit margins, it is almost a marketing tactic in itself. So if you're going to do sourdough bread, my key piece of advice, just don't focus only on the bread, because the bread isn't really the moneymaker. The moneymaker is the other things you're selling with the bread. So scones, granola, muffins, all these things are things that people who are buying sourdough bread often will add to their order. So homemade sourdough granola is a great one. You can do it as a granola bar or as a crunched granola that people just add to their yogurt. Sourdough cinnamon rolls are another great one. So, talking about sourdough bakeries, when you bring in your customer with your artisan loaves, your beautiful artisan loaves are going to be what really attracts people, because you have a high demand for artisan sourdough right now. But once you get those customers in the door, you want to have other things that they can add on to their order so that you're increasing the price per customer. So the average sale price, you want it to go up. Great items to include are, number 1, cinnamon rolls. Sourdough cinnamon rolls are a great thing to add to your micro bakery, because think of each oven as an amount of money. So let's say you can fit about 6 loaves of artisan sourdough into your oven. You load them up in the cast irons and you bake them. And let's say it takes you 30 minutes to bake those loaves. That means that oven alone is gonna make you about $60, which is great. But let's say instead you add 3 pans of 24 cinnamon rolls into that same oven. That would get you about 72 cinnamon rolls an oven. Let's say you charge $5 a cinnamon roll, which is a very common price that people charge for cinnamon rolls. That would make you $360 for that oven load for a very similar bake time, if not a less bake time. Although cinnamon rolls cost more to make technically because they include cinnamon sugar, usually you're using a brioche base, a sourdough brioche, instead of just a plain sourdough. So yes, it costs more for ingredients, but it is a lot less work per product, which when you're dealing with sourdough at home is a great thing. So definitely recommend sourdough cinnamon rolls. Another thing would be sourdough babka breads. That is a specialty type of bread. You can find recipes for it online. We have a sourdough brioche, and I would use that really as a base for any babka breads, any sourdough. Brioche is just a really buttery, and it really pairs well with that sourdough flavor. And so when you make specialty items with a sourdough brioche, usually you can either fit them on a pan or you can fit them into tins, and you can fit a lot more bread tins into an oven than you can artisan sourdough loaves. So that is really going to help you make a larger profit on your sourdough baking business. Another item you see a lot of sourdough bakers selling is granola. So the type of granola that you add on top of your yogurt. You also see them selling granola bars. Granola bars can become very expensive based on the ingredients that you use. So you do want to keep in mind what ingredients you are adding into your granola bars and places that you can source your ingredients cheaper. So maybe bulk stores, Costco. Just do some experimenting with your granola bars. At home, you may use, So I just talked about sourdough. Really though, I want to focus on cinnamon rolls, because cinnamon rolls aren't just great if you're doing sourdough. They're a great item to sell no matter what kind of bakery you're doing. And that's for a couple of reasons that I mentioned earlier, which is that you can fit a lot in one oven, and so each oven is fairly profitable. Another reason is that if you're going by cottage food laws, cinnamon rolls are usually part of those cottage food laws in most states. Buttercream can be shelf stable if you use the right ingredients, or there's also several shelf stable glazes that you can use for cinnamon rolls. That makes them the perfect item for a home baker, because they have a very profitable oven. Each oven is very profitable. They're shelf stable, and you can sell them for a very good price. So another thing you have to think about when you are a home baker, or even if you have your own bakery, is packaging. Under cottage food laws, everything has, in most states, it's different in all states, but specifically in Ohio, the law is that you don't have to have a license, but you just have to abide by these things called cottage food laws. So what those are is that each item needs to be packaged and needs to have a label that includes all of the ingredients. And in Ohio, I know you can look up a list of all the items that are included under these laws. Things that are not included are things that are temperature controlled, like cheesecake. You can't make cheesecake and sell it under cottage food laws, but you can make cupcakes with a shelf-stable buttercream, and that is under cottage food laws. But like I said, everything has to be packaged and everything has to be labeled properly. And a lot of money can go into labeling, especially things that are harder to package. That is why that's another reason why cinnamon rolls are nice, is because you can easily package them into you can sell them in a tin, where you keep them in the tin and you bake them in that tin, and then you put the lid on it and you put the sticker on. And I can actually link some good packaging for cinnamon rolls below. But you can also just bake them on a regular sheet pan and then transfer them into a box, like, just a 8x8 box or a 9x9. We always sell our cinnamon rolls in packs of 4 and 6. If you sell them individually, there's also plenty of packaging out there, like clam shells or clear shells. Those are great options for cinnamon rolls. Things that are a little more difficult to package are things like slices of cake, because really slices of cake aren't super expensive and they can be beautiful. But I've seen a lot of people put a lot of money into packaging things like that. And even macarons. We sold macarons a while ago, and I had to buy some specialty macaron packaging, and it was definitely more expensive than I expected. And you do have to assemble those small boxes, which also takes up a lot of time. So just remember to include packaging when you're trying to come up with your price per item. The next item that I'm going to be discussing is cookie sandwiches. And there's a couple reasons that cookie sandwiches are a very profitable item for home bakers. One is that cookies are very easy to prep ahead. You can make your cookie dough one day, scoop it out onto a pan, and put it in the freezer. And then cookies can actually be directly baked from freezer to oven. It's really easy to prep your cookies ahead of time, making them an easy item and not too time consuming. The thing for us was that we had a hard time selling individual cookies. Now, jumbo cookies do pretty good. They definitely sell better than regular standard size cookies, but for some reason when you turn it into a sandwich, it becomes much more appealing to people. And I think that's because, you see cookies a lot at family gatherings, holiday parties, potlucks, but very rarely do you see someone going to the effort of making the icing, doubling the cookies, and that's why they're really only seen at bakeries, making them an extra special item that people have a hard time resisting. Especially if they already have an order, it's a very easy item to just add on to their order. And it's very tempting at a farmer's market to just see that cookie sandwich. It's an easy thing to pick up. It's not super messy to eat as long as your cookies are soft enough. And it's just a great item. And also the packaging is very easy. You just have to get treat bags, and then you can either heat seal them or just fold them down and staple them and then slap your label on them. So that makes them a really cheap thing to package. They have great profit margins, and people usually have a hard time resisting them. I would say scones are probably one of the most underrated items, at least here in the US. I know they're probably a lot more popular over in Europe, but as for the US, they're underrated, and they're one of probably my favorite items that we sell at the Flour Barn. The lemon blueberry is definitely my top scone flavor, and it's also very popular with people. Once they've had one, they really become addicted to them. And they are one of the best things to make in bulk, we use the food processor method, where you cut the butter and the flour in a food processor. We have a commercial food processor. It makes the whole process go by very quickly, and then we store them in the freezer, and they are another thing that can be baked directly from the freezer. So they go straight from the freezer into the oven. So they're easy to do in bulk. The ingredients are usually very affordable. You do have to be careful though. There are some flavors, like anything with dehydrated raspberries, it's such a beautiful color, but it's very expensive, so you have to be careful. Anything with sliced almonds can get pretty expensive, so we usually stick with our popular flavors, which are honey cinnamon, which is relatively inexpensive, and then lemon blueberry is pretty inexpensive. And I will link both of those recipes below. Something that has kind of made a resurgence lately has been focaccia, and this can be popular whether it's a sourdough focaccia or just a regular yeasted focaccia. They are easy to package, they're easy to prep, and you can make a lot per oven load. So if you make a sheet pan of focaccia and then you cut it into, let's say, 6 slices, you can sell each of those slices probably for about I would say $8 to $10 a piece. So that's just from one pan alone. Let's say you fit 3 in an oven, that's $60 a pan, 6 times 3, $180 per oven load, which is pretty good. And the ingredients are fairly affordable, as long as you're buying a mid-level olive oil. You don't want to put, because it requires a lot of olive oil, so you just want to kind of think about that when you're purchasing your olive oil. You can also do so many fun things with focaccia. You can do a basic Italian seasoning and coarse salt, or you can add pizza toppings like fresh mozzarella. We've added bruschetta before. We've done pistachio raspberry, which was not, I wouldn't suggest that, it's very expensive. It had honey, pistachios, and freeze-dried raspberries, which are all very expensive. But a cinnamon sugar focaccia, so some people call that the cinnamon roll focaccia, that's another good one with a good profit margin. So focaccia is an exciting one because people are getting more familiar with it now. You see a lot of it on social media, so that's a great one to have at your bakery. Another item that can be very profitable are muffins. If you're going to be making muffins, I would say make them jumbo. We try to make everything jumbo. It makes everything more excited, and it usually just always sells better if we up it. The only exception to this rule is if you are someone who is doing more of like a daily bread sort of bakery, or maybe a CSA style bakery, which is when your customers are coming to you for their staples. So maybe they're coming for their weekly bread loaf, maybe they get a dozen eggs, they get some granola. In that case, people might want something that is more everyday, like, so a standard size muffin or even mini muffins might be more appealing to those customers. So even like if you do a farm stand, this might be a good place where you have a standard muffin. But if you're working in a shop-like situation, or you are doing wholesale to coffee shops, or you're at a farmer's market, jumbo cinnamon rolls are more appealing to that crowd. When I was in college, I mentioned that I had my own micro bakery out of my apartment, and what I did was I would bake in the morning, and then I would post on my apartment's Facebook group what I had baked that day, and then people would purchase from me. And my best seller was always a babka bread. So that is a brioche based bread filled with, I usually filled it with like a cream cheese filling and then a jam, but chocolate is another popular flavor. You bake it and then you top it with like a simple syrup. And the reason this is so great for home bakeries is that it's not an artisan loaf, but yet it feels very special and decadent. So you can really fill your oven with several bread tins, and it just makes each oven load more profitable as opposed to the sourdough bread. So that's a great example to when, although the item is more expensive to make, it takes you less time, so it almost evens everything out. you're spending less time in the kitchen, you're putting less effort into it, and you're still making a great profit on it. So while I could sell a sourdough loaf for $10, I could sell my babka loaf for $15, so $5 more, which definitely covered the ingredients, and I spent a lot less time on those loaves than I did the artisan sourdough loaves. One item that we have sold at our bakery is called a bee sting bar, and what that is a bar that has a shortbread crust, and then you cover it with sliced almonds and then caramel. This is actually, it falls under a lot of cottage food laws, and so a lot of home bakeries can sell this item. What I will say about a bee sting bar is that they can be very expensive to make depending on the price of sliced almonds in your area. So we actually had to stop selling this item because it became too expensive. But one thing that's interesting is the idea, because sometimes cottage food laws do limit what you can sell, and you want to have something more unique to kind of bring customers in. So if you're in a lull and you're kind of seeing a drop in sales, and you just want an exciting item to kind of bring people back in to your bakery, look for items like a bee sting bar, things that people maybe want to just try from you. So another example of that might be a millionaire shortbread bar. I'm trying to think of, we sold another one, I think they were called magic bars. Anything with that shortbread crust, a little bit of caramel. It's just something fun that people got really excited about, and I noticed people coming back in just for that item. So sometimes an item might not be the most profitable, and you might not even want to carry it for very long, but it might just be a good advertising tool. There is a whole category of baking that is centered around special occasions. So while I gave you a list of items that I think are profitable for home bakeries, there is a difference between a home bakery that maybe is advertising on Facebook and going to farmers markets than there is between a bakery that is catering. So if you're doing weddings or baby showers or grad parties, that is a whole different type of baking, and it can be just as profitable. So if you're someone who is wanting to maybe do a few events and just make money on those, special occasion baking is a great way to do that. It often does take a specialty skill, so whether that's being a good cake decorator or being a talented royal icing cookie decorator, those skills lend themselves better to catering than they do to just farmers markets or events where you're having someone come in and look at your items. Because you do usually spend a lot of time on those items, but your profits are usually a lot higher, and people are willing to pay for those things for special occasions like their wedding or their baby shower or events like that. So definitely don't discount special occasion baking, but just know that it's usually going to be centered around holidays or weekends, which might be perfect for you, but for some people they don't want to have to do all their business always on the weekends. Another thing that has been very profitable for my bakery is teaching classes to our community on baking skills. And I have actually discussed this with other bakery owners, and a lot of them are hesitant to do this because they're worried that if they teach their customer base their skills, that they will no longer be returning customers. And this is a very valid fear, but we have just noticed that it has not taken away from our customer base. If anything, it has created more passionate customers. In some instances, people who take our classes were not people who were buying baked goods from us anyway. So we were just able to teach them a skill, we made money off of the class, and then they were able to go and make sourdough, but they weren't maybe purchasing sourdough from us anyway. And then in other cases, people do learn to make sourdough, and they grow accustomed to having sourdough all the time. And when they don't have sourdough, they come to us for it. And then in other cases, people just want to take the class for fun, and they're not really wanting to make sourdough every week for themselves. So they're still very good customers. We really haven't seen any type of harm from teaching classes. We have only seen better customers from those classes. And some examples of classes that we teach are sourdough, brioche, which is a class where I teach how to make our simple brioche recipe, and then you learn how to make cinnamon rolls and other items that you can use the brioche dough for. We also teach a focaccia class. We teach a baking with herbs class. We teach a butterboard and scone class. And we also teach a charcuterie class, which seems to not really go with the others, but it's a very fun class. And then we just recently have added an artisan pizza class, a whole grains class where we teach people to bake and mill their own flour, and I'm trying to think, and then homesteading basics, which is where we teach people to make their own yogurt, their own bread, and their own granola, or I actually believe we started making biscuits instead of granola. So we also have a buttermilk biscuit class where we teach you to make biscuits and then also how to make freezer jam. So you actually don't have to abide by any cottage food laws for teaching classes. You're just usually inviting people into your home or a rental space, and you're teaching them a skill. And there's so many levels to which you can do this. Ours is very hands-on and you leave with a lot of stuff, but we do charge quite a bit for our classes. You could definitely do less of a less hands-on, more like a how-to course where you are demoing a lot and they're not doing so much, and you could just charge less and maybe even be able to have more people. So there's a lot of options with teaching classes, and I definitely think it's worth considering if you're someone who loves to bake and wants to share your knowledge with your community. So a good piece of advice that I learned from Joe Salatin, if any of you are in the homesteading space, you may have heard of him. He talks about that once you have a customer in your space, they're very likely to buy other things from you. So let's say you have brought in a couple people who love to buy sourdough from you and they're coming in weekly to get your loaves of sourdough. You might want to have other items for them to buy. So it's great to have other baked goods, but that is a lot of work for you. Every single week you have to make the baked goods for them fresh, and if they don't buy them, you have baked goods left over. What's nice to include are things that don't take any effort, but your customers can still purchase from you. So this could be non-perishable mixes, such as pancake mixes, quick bread mixes. I've done a cookie in a bottle where it's like a cookie recipe, and all you have to do is add the butter and the eggs to it. And those are things that you can kind of get done maybe in 1 week or throughout a couple weeks, and you have those able to sell for several weeks. They don't have to be made fresh every single week, so they're kind of a nice thing to have that's there for your customer that doesn't necessarily take your effort. Other things that are like that are t-shirts and mugs, anything like that. Those are also good items to put your logo on, because that's kind of like they're paying to advertise for you. At my bakery personally, I've had a very hard time selling t-shirts and mugs, but I know that other bakeries have had a lot of luck with things like that. So I don't know if I'm just like a bad t-shirt designer or what, but because I have seen such luck at other places, I'm just gonna mention that you can make money off of retail items like t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, things like that. Another great item to sell at your bakery that kind of falls under the category of it doesn't take much effort on your part is to find a local coffee roaster and to sell their beans or to sell their grounds. A lot of coffee roasters have wholesale prices, and you can just buy from them, and it's very easy. You can either pick up or you can order from a trusted brand that you love, and you can sell that to your customer as well. You don't make a lot on it, but you also have to put in no effort, and they last for a while, so you don't have to be dealing with leftovers that you have to throw away or anything like that. If you're wondering how places make money on selling retail items, so places like boutiques that sell little trinkets and things, you can also sell stuff like that. So let's say you're a sourdough baker who wants to also sell cloth napkins and aprons and Dutch whisks, there is a site called fair.com, and you can create an account and you can buy wholesale from them. So you can find different artisans who sell their items at wholesale prices, and you can actually sell that in your bakery or at your farmer's market stand, or wherever you sell your baked goods. You can find things that pair well, and that's nice because if you have the audience for it and you can actually sell those items, you're putting very little effort into, you're not making those, you're just buying them and reselling them. And so if you're able to do that, it's a really great way to make money. I want to start by saying that you don't have to do this last part. There's a lot of push to really be on social media for bakers, especially you see a lot of young moms on there, and sometimes it can feel like something you need to do to be able to create a fan base or customer base. It's definitely not. While you do need to have a social media, like a Facebook, pretty much you just need to have a Facebook. It's really the best app for finding local customers. But other than a Facebook, you don't need to have a TikTok, you don't need to have an Instagram, you don't need to have a YouTube to get local customers that will buy your baked goods. Now, if you love making content, there is a lot of opportunity out there for bakers to be able to create a fan base or make some money online. One way is through a blog. So if you're someone who loves to create recipes and loves to share baking tips, a blog is a great way to make money. What you do is you write, let's say, 1 to 2 blog posts a week. You post those onto your own website, and if you grow a big enough following, advertisers will pay to advertise on your site, and that can bring in a monthly profit that varies widely, but it is an extra way to make money on your passion for baking. Another way is on Instagram. If you get a lot of Instagram followers, you can create partnerships with brands like Amazon or I don't have a great following, so I haven't experienced what it's like, but other brands will pay you to basically promote their content, or also they can slip ads into maybe like your reels. And so Instagram is really based, if you like to make video content on Instagram, that is usually what is making the money on Instagram. And then also YouTube. If you consistently post videos of you baking, you sharing your experiences, you can also make money through YouTube because advertisers can put ads throughout your video. So if you really do enjoy creating content, it's no small task. It's not something that you kind of just do on the side. It's a lot of effort to create content, whether it's Instagram, YouTube, or creating your own website. But it can prove to be profitable. So if you're really looking for some side gigs, it's a great way to make money off of your love of baking. Something to think about when you're starting your own home bakery is that items become more profitable the more you niche down. So some people say niche, I say niche. I'm not even sure which one it is, but the more you narrow your focus, the more profitable your items will be. So places that are able to just sell cupcakes can be very profitable because all of their equipment is centered around making cupcakes. So they have a mixer that's perfect. It's the exact size they need for making this many cupcakes. They have tons of cupcake pans. They have tons of piping bags and piping tips, and they're just really well equipped to make bulk cupcakes. So that means that every time they make a cupcake, because it's so simple, they have everything streamlined, it takes less time, it takes less energy, and it just becomes very easy, making it more profitable each time they do it. The same as if you make a lot of macarons. If you're completely dedicated to macarons, then you're able to get everything perfectly situated just for macarons. Whereas if you're someone who's kind of a jack of all trades, it can be a little more difficult to have all the equipment necessary to make everything so simple. So it's kind of like you have to learn as you go. You have to figure out what equipment makes each process easier as you go. So if you're able to, like if you have a market for just sweet rolls or cinnamon rolls, that can be a really great way to get your bakery started by just doing one item over and over and over again, getting all the equipment for just that item, because it makes it easier on you, and it really does overall make that item more profitable because you're not wasting money on different equipment that doesn't really suit your needs, and you're spending less time making those items each time. I hope that makes sense. We found that we used to sell cakes. We used to do custom cake orders, and we had our storefront. And we just noticed that because we didn't do a lot of cakes, that every time we did do a cake, it took a lot of time, it took a lot of effort, and it just ended up not being feasible for us to continue doing cakes. If you are thinking about starting a baking business, I'm here to encourage you. I've made money baking in a lot of different ways, and I've found so much joy through each of them. I think there's a lot of different opportunities based on what phase of life you're in or what you're hoping to get out of it. But please let me know any questions or comments you may have. Just let me know in the comments below. I will be linking all the recipes I mentioned, as well as a full blog post that goes over basically all that I talked about in detail in the comments or in the description below. If you liked this video and you'd like to see more content like this, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you're looking for more recipes and baking tips, be sure to check out theflourbarnhomestead.com. Have a good one.